Good morning, Chetna.
Morning, Sajal. Kim Chair. Can you
hear us, Chetna?
Yes, I can hear
Turn
you.
on your camera so we can see you.
Okay.
You're already great. So good to see you.
How are you?
I'm glad I met you again.
You too.
Can you hear us?
Yes,
I think your volume is, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Are you able to see us, hear us? Can you say something?
I can hear you.
Okay, there you are. Yeah, we can hear you now. Great. So we have
Yeah, she's helping.
we have Chetna Kansangra, and this is welcome to Yoga Shakti class. We really appreciate your time and effort for this session. And she is a clinical, Chetna is a clinical dietitian. She has been practicing the clinic dietitian for years. And she spoke to several communities regarding the dietitian practices. And I've met her through Mangal Mandir. So I have really great experience in gaining a lot of dietitian knowledge from her. And I appreciate all the input that she has given us so far. And we wanted more.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to just give you heads up. And over to you, Chetna. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. So,
share screen or something?
Yes.
Okay.
I think yes. Share. Hold on one second.
Can you enable the sharing option for her?
Yeah, I'm gonna try that.
And mute me.
Yeah, can you try it now? Are you able to share it?
No, it's showing still host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, there it is. Try it now.
Okay. No, still.
Really?
Maybe you can make her the presenter.
Hold on. Try it now.
Oh, yes.
Okay, there you go.
I'm glad you're here, Vinaya. Thank you.
Yeah, we need
technical things too much. I like real presentations.
Yeah, we always need a backup for technical stuff support.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Are you able to see it? Everything good?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about healthy eating to prevent chronic diseases today. Okay. I can't see myself.
That's okay.
All right. All right. So brief introduction of myself. Thank you, Sergio, for introducing me, and happy Father's Day to everybody out there. Basically, I've been a dietitian for over 30 years. I trained in England, came here about 27 years ago, and I've been working as a consultant dietitian for over 25, 26, 27 years now, and have mainly worked with clinical diets, dealing with a lot of diabetics, blood pressure issues, heart disease, tube feeding, you name it. As long as it's clinical, I've done it in the past. Today's session, Sejal asked if I could talk about healthy eating, which is not as simple as it sounds, because when we look at nutrition, nutrition has changed so much over the last 2 decades. The advice that we used to give before has changed tremendously over the last 2 decades. And I just wanted to kind of review that so that you get an idea of how nutrition has changed and how the information we give for all these chronic diseases has changed, so that you can understand why you have to eat certain things to control certain diseases. All right. So why is healthy eating important? Well, you are what you eat. And basically, your nutritional status is a reflection of your blood work and your weight gain or weight loss. So when we think about diet, it's important to think in terms of quality and quantity of food. Those are two important components of the diet that you should think about anytime you want to make any changes in your diet and lifestyle. Okay, so chronic diseases basically are preventable, and prevention is the key to maintaining your health. All right. So when we talk about nutritional status, diet is just one component of it. Your healthy lifestyle consists of so many pieces, just like a jigsaw puzzle. You have so many pieces. You can look at your exercise, your sleep cycle, your blood work, your diet. Is just one component that is important to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So when you talk about diet, we need to look at two things, the quality of food and the quantity of food. The quality determines your blood work. If your quality of diet is poor, it's going to be reflected in your blood work, your glucose, your HbA1c, your iron levels, your lipid profile. These are all reflections of the quality of the foods that you might be eating. By quantity of the diet, I mean the amount that you're eating. Okay, so both of those things are equally important. The amount, if you eat huge quantities of food, you're going to be a bigger person. If you don't eat enough, you're going to be a very small person, right? So the quantity and quality are both equally important. And that's the message I want you to remember today. So why blood work is important? Okay, you can't hide blood work. Okay, whatever you eat is going to be reflected in your blood work. Facts are facts. A lot of people come to clinic and sometimes they will sit there and tell me that they don't eat anything and they don't understand why the cholesterol is so high. Many factors can affect things like cholesterol, blood sugar, and everything, but the diet is an important component. And a lot of people, when they're in denial, they don't want to admit something or they don't want to face something, will not want the facts to be told. But blood work does not lie. When I go and see most of my clients, I look at the full blood work. I look at their CBCs, look at their iron levels, look at their glucose, HbA1c, and particularly the lipid profile. And that really are, in a nutshell, the nutritional factors that reflect what they're eating. Let me know if I'm talking too fast. Okay, all right. So what is healthy eating? Basically, it's very confusing. And the reason why it's confusing is because nutrition itself has changed over the last 2 decades. So people are always questioning, are fats good or bad? Should we eat more carbohydrates? Are eggs good? Should we drink skim milk or full fat milk? Is butter better than margarine? Is fruit juice better than fruits? Is using sweeteners better than using sugar? Organic versus free roaming livestock? I mean, there's so many questions that keep coming out over and over because nutrition itself has changed in the last 2 decades. Food nowadays can actually be your medicine. It can cure you or it can poison you. The choice is yours. So in today's society, chronic diseases are on the rise. We know that for a fact because heart disease is on the rise, blood pressure is on the rise, cancer is on the rise, everything is going up, up, up. Okay, all the chronic diseases. There's a lot more knowledge about nutrition now. There's a lot more information on food labeling and things have changed a bit as far as labeling goes. I'm going to touch on that. There's a lot more food-like substances coming out, artificially made foods coming out, which aren't real foods. Like, for example, ramen noodles, they're not real food, but people are eating a lot of them. Okay, so that's just an example. There's a lot more confusion about food because of the lifestyle that we're living. It's a very fast-paced lifestyle where people are working harder. They're doing a lot more things with their kids. They're living in bigger houses with having to pay a lot more, you know, for their cost of living. And they're making poor choices because they're not concerned about food and they don't have time to cook. They don't want to cook. So they're making poor choices. And especially with the availability of food-like substances, they're eating more convenience foods. And a result of all that, chronic diseases are on the rise. There's a lot more changes in nutrition itself, where there's the GMO products are coming out. There's more grains that are new grains coming out, that are being manufactured. There's factory farming versus grass-fed farming. So all these things are changing, which is resulting in a lot more confusion. All right, so there's a lot to nutrition than just basic healthy eating. All right, so the advice and information has changed. So in the 80s, when I finished my training, we were focusing mainly on heart disease, and this was the old food guide pyramid that we used to follow, and the main emphasis was on cutting down fats. And as a result of cutting down fats, people ended up having more carbohydrates in the diet. So the carbohydrates resulted in more insulin production, and as a result, a lot more people became diabetic. So this model was not really working. So the last 2 decades, that's the information that was mainly given out, focusing mainly on heart disease. The new advice now is based on the choosemyplate.gov model, where a little bit of everything is good, but more emphasis is given on cutting down on refined carbs, refined white starch, and actually fats aren't as bad as we used to think. Initially, fats were considered really bad. It was just cutting down all the fats in the diet, but now the emphasis is on actually changing to a better quality of fats in the diet. But fats are important to have in the diet. Okay, so the old advice, the low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet, led to insulin production going up, and as a result, there's a lot more people with insulin resistance and diabetes now, and also high triglycerides, fatty liver. All these conditions are in the rise. So what is a balanced diet? Same question again. Well, you can get more information from choosemyplate.gov to get specific information on portion sizes. I'm not going to go too much into portions today because that's actually based on your requirements. The 5 food groups that everybody should include in their diet are fruits and vegetables, grains, protein, and dairy. And the portions should be like, this is a plate. Half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables. Little over a quarter should be grains, and the grains should be whole grain. So I'll focus a little bit more on the quality of the grains in a few minutes. And then a little less than a quarter should be protein and dairy. So to get a balanced diet, all of those things have to be included. And the requirements, the quantity part, is based on your height, your weight, your age, sex, and activity. But I'm going to actually focus on reducing sugar, reducing refined carbohydrates, and the poor quality fats, and including more whole grains for today's session, so you get a better picture of everything. But we'll come back to this at the end. So healthy lifestyle and diet is a choice. Like with anything else, everything is a choice. Whatever you choose is going to determine the outcome of your health, basically. So you choose to exercise, drink more water, get adequate sleep. These are personal choices that people can make. Checking your blood work is also a choice. If you check your blood work regularly and correct it as you go along, you're making the right choices. But many times people do not feel any different when their cholesterol is going up, their triglyceride might be high, their blood sugar might be high, and they don't feel any different. They may not take it seriously and not choose to do their blood work. So they don't make the right choices. Okay, eating right is also a choice. Many times people know what they should be eating, but they don't choose to do that. They may be in denial, they may just not want to eat that. Okay, so everything is a choice, but it depends how important you think it is to do that. What I would like you to know today is that it is so important to choose nutrient-dense foods. Okay, so basically we eat in order to get energy from food. So when you think about it, whatever you eat is going to make you whatever you are today, whether you're healthy or unhealthy, mind and body. Right? So just think about that for a second, that the outcome of whatever you put in your mouth is going to be part of you, right? So it's a choice. I just want to let you know what nutrient density means. Nutrient dense foods are the foods that have fewer calories and give you more nutrients. Things like the nuts, the fruits, the seeds, the whole grains, they give you more nutrients and less calories. As opposed to calorie dense foods, which are foods that give you more calories and less nutrients. So for example, a bag of chips or a candy bar will give you more calories, but not really nutrients, okay? Now on this slide, you can see both of them are very colorful, very attractive, but which one is better for you? The nutrient-dense foods will give you more nutrients that the body actually needs to stay healthy. The calorie-dense foods, they look colorful, but they don't give you anything but calories. Okay, so just to talk about sugars, why it's important, like I mentioned earlier, that we are now in the new food model, we're trying to reduce the sugar and reduce refined carbohydrates. Refined carbohydrates are things like white bread, white rice, potatoes, white pasta, all of those things in the body, when they break down, they just release sugar. And to the body, it's just sugar, just like the added sugars. So that's why refined white carbs is listed with the sugars and the things that we should be cutting down. So sugar consumption over the decades has gone up tremendously, and people are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Sugar used to be a commodity that was only for wealthy people. It was only for people that could really afford it years ago, centuries ago. Now everybody has money and sugar is a lot cheaper. Everybody's eating more and more. Food industries are adding more and more sugars to their foods because it's a cheap thing to throw in. And as a result of all that, people are eating too much sugar. So the American Heart Association recommends no more than 9 teaspoons of sugar for men and no more than 6 teaspoons of sugar for women. The average consumption is about 19 to 20 teaspoons of sugar per day, and which results in about 66 pounds of sugar a year. So the intake added sugar is very high. Sorry, that's my dog. He has his moments. It's all right, he'll go out. Okay, so there's different types of sugar in the diet, and there's different sources of sugar. What I'd like you to know is that, I'm not going to go into the technical details, but when different sources of sugar break down in the body, it releases either glucose or fructose. When it releases just glucose, that's the sugar that affects your blood work. So if you have diabetes or you have other issues with diabetes, then that's going to be affected by this glucose. The fructose is metabolized by the liver and it's converted to triglycerides. So the thing I wanted to teach you was that high fructose corn syrup is glucose in corn that is converted to fructose to increase the shelf life of a product, but it's very addictive. And because the liver is involved in metabolizing the fructose, it converts it to triglyceride and it can cause things like fatty liver. Okay, so there's different types of sugar, and depending on what source of sugar you have in the diet, the metabolism is different. Why reduce sugar in the diet? Well, basically, sugar only provides 4 calories per gram, and it's very easily overconsumed and it's very addictive. So it doesn't provide anything other than empty calories. And if you have a sugary drink, for example, people can actually drink their sugar. Okay, so it's very easy to overconsume and it's very addictive. Why worry about the added sugars? Well, nutritionally, like I mentioned earlier, it can lead to obesity, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, high triglyceride, and heart disease. Many, many studies show this. And it's also shown that people who have a higher intake of added sugar in their diet are more likely to have lower levels of the actual foods containing nutrients. So they're not getting enough beneficial nutrients in their diet if they're having too many added sugars. And studies do show that. So sugar has many names. Just everybody needs to be aware that there are many names for sugars, and especially if you're diabetic or no concentrated sweets diet, or if you have high triglycerides, that sugar has at least 60 names. I just named a few up here, but there are many names for sugars that are listed on the label, which you may not be aware of. Okay, so the food labels have also changed. In 2020, the new food label came out, and it never used to have added sugar section on the label before 2020. So there was a lot of foods, processed foods with sugars that were listed in the ingredients list, but they weren't put on the nutrition label that people were aware of. So products could have contained more sugar and not known that they were eating all these sugary foods. But the new label actually has to have that added sugar listed on there. So that's making a little difference, but people still need to be aware of the hidden sugars on the ingredients list. Okay, so I'm just going to show you two things to look for when you look at a nutrition label, is to look at the nutrition facts. That's one label. And then you have the ingredients list, which has sugars listed in decreasing order by weight. Okay, so both of those you need to look at to see the hidden sugars in food. So ingredients list is, I've got an example here of a chocolate chip bar. Basically, the list of ingredients is in descending order of predominance. So what it means is that by the end of the list, the things that are listed at the bottom is in the smallest amount in that product. Now, the way the nutrition regulation is, the labeling regulation, is that things that are listed right at the bottom, depending on the amount that's listed there, they don't have to state it on the nutrition label, which is really confusing. So what happens is that if you look at this example, you've got the chocolate chip bar with brown sugar here, you've got sugar in the list there, you've got corn syrup, which is another name for sugar, oligofructose, another name for sugar, polydextrose, all these are different names for sugars. This product, the ones that are listed at the top, they would put on the nutrition label. The ones at the bottom may not even be listed there as added sugars. So the product has more sugar than the consumer may realize. Okay, so ways to reduce sugar intake. Basically, first of all, do not add extra sugar because the food already has enough sugar in it. The natural food itself has sugar in it. So that's enough and it's natural. It's better to get it from the natural sources than to add sugar. So do not add sugar. Choose foods with no added sugar. You can choose low sugar alternatives. You can change cooking methods, but watch out for the processed foods with the high fructose corn syrup. Now, high fructose corn syrup is added to processed foods to preserve the shelf life. And what it means is that when they add this high fructose corn syrup, the product doesn't go off as easily. It'll increase the shelf life, and that way the manufacturers can manufacture so much more and make more profit on that food. But the problem with high fructose corn syrup is that it's metabolized in the liver, and it can cause your triglyceride to go up and cause fatty liver. So not so good to have in your diet. Other ways to reduce your sugar intake change from obviously very sickly sweet foods to making healthier alternatives using natural fruits, dried fruits, and making smoothies and things like that with no added sugar. Avoid sugary drinks. 1 can of Coke will give you like up to 10 teaspoons of sugar. So you're drinking your sugar rather than drinking it. To choose alternatives, things like flavored water or just water. Cereals that are loaded with sugar are just giving you nothing but sugar. There's no nutrients in these cereals. So choose the healthier alternatives, which are whole grain and healthier, and low sugar condiments. Okay, avoid sugary sauces, processed foods, pasta sauces. You can choose the low sugar alternatives. They are available everywhere. You just have to look at the label and know what you're looking for on the label. And it is doable. There's a lot more products out there available now, and they are usually on sale too. So you have to look out for them. You don't have to pay extra to get healthier foods. So when you look at ingredients list, one more thing is that you don't need things with like so many additives. The simpler, the better. Okay, that's the key message. Okay, so a lot of people turn to sweeteners thinking they're cutting down sugar and they can have sweeteners instead. Now, how bad are these sweeteners? These are artificial sweeteners. Most of them are 200 to 600 times sweeter than sugar. They are made with chemicals, and they really just satisfy that sweet taste. But the problem is that if you're craving something sweet, your blood glucose is probably low. These don't provide the sugar, and you're not satisfying the craving really. So you might end up having more of these sweeteners in the long run, which aren't very beneficial. Okay, there's two types of artificial sweeteners. There's non-nutritive ones and nutritive ones. Some of the ones that I mentioned earlier, like high fructose corn syrup, is a nutritive one. It gives you calories as well. And that's added to a lot of foods to increase the shelf life. It's cheap and it's very addictive. And it's linked to obesity, can cause inflammation, leaky gut, diabetes, and liver problems. Okay, so things like sugar alcohols that are used in diabetic products, like diabetic cookies, diabetic chocolate, candy, those things are actually sugar alcohols, which are okay for diabetics to have, but they are metabolized differently. They're very high in calories, and they do make you gain weight, and they also have laxative effects. So there are side effects, and they're not good in the long term. Okay, summary of reducing sugar. Think about the obvious sugars, the added sugars. You can avoid those. Look out for the hidden sugars. I mentioned all the different names for sugars. Think about reading labels, looking at the nutrition labels, the added sugars on the nutrition label, and the hidden names for sugars. Think about high fructose corn syrup, something that is added to a lot of foods that aren't even sweet. They don't taste sweet. They could be added to even crackers. So be careful where you're getting that. Avoid having that in your diet, and avoid the refined white starch, which breaks down in the body and releases sugar. What we should be changing to is having more plant-based foods, whole foods, and natural fruits and vegetables, which provide natural sugars for the body. They're slowly released, and also they are nutrient dense. They will provide other nutrients which are beneficial to health. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about sugars for now. Next thing I want to talk about is excess fat intake and how we can change to healthier fats. Because the old advice was cut down all fats, but now we're realizing you need a certain amount of fats in your diet to actually fill you up. And at the same time, the actual type of fat is important to have in your diet to lower the bad fats in the diet that are produced in the body. Okay, it'll make sense by the time I finish, hopefully. Okay, so fats in the diet. Should you reduce fat? Well, the old advice was yes, but now what we're realizing is that if you're overweight, you should reduce the amount of fat, but it's more important to change the quality of fat to a better quality of fat, because the good fats helps to lower the bad fats in the body. Okay, fats are just concentrated calories. So when we compare carbohydrates and fats, for 1 gram of carbohydrate, you get 4 calories per gram. Fats actually provide 9 calories per gram. So you only need a little bit of fat to give you a lot more calories. Okay, the advice is to change to better quality fats. So what are the different fats? You need to know what the bad fats are and the good fats are to do that, right? So saturated fats are things like animal fats, like butter, ghee, lard, dairy fats. Plant sources are things like vegetable oils, coconut oil, palm oil, and palm kernel oil. Sometimes vegetable fats are hydrogenated and made into saturated fats by a process that makes it increase the shelf life of that oil. Okay. Unsaturated fats are the plant fats, things like the olive oil, the avocado oil, the nuts and seed oils. Those are the good fats. Partially hydrogenated oils. This is the thing to look out for on nutrition labels. Okay, these are the trans fats, which are not so good for the heart. Okay, vegetable oils are converted to trans fats by adding extra hydrogen, and it increases the shelf life of that oil. So food manufacturers use this process to make this partially hydrogenated oil to add to cookies and cakes and processed foods to increase the shelf life and make money. So in the long term, when you eat foods that have the partially hydrogenated fats, they're not good for your heart. Okay, this is a summary of all the fats in the diet. So basically saturated fats are listed here. You have unsaturated fats, which can be broken down into things like olive oil and monounsaturates, which are good fats. And then you have the polyunsaturated fats, which has the omega-6 and omega-3 fats. Now, when people take fish oils and they take all these supplements, that's what you're taking the concentrated source of. Omega-3 fats is what you're probably taking to supplement it. You can actually get this in your diet if you have a well-balanced diet. And what's important is that these essential fats are important for the body for survival, because they determine how much inflammation the body's going to have. So they are an important part of your metabolism. But what's happening is that because of the processed foods that are being manufactured and processed foods that people are taking, they're taking too much of the omega-6 and not enough of the omega-3. Both of those, omega-6 and omega-3, are essential for the body, and they are obtained from the diet. They're not made in the body, so we do need to get it from the diet. Okay. Omega-6 fats are the ones that cause inflammation. They increase inflammation, and they're mainly from the processed foods, the fatty meats, the dairy fats, the eggs and things like that, or the salad dressing and all those things. They give you the omega-6, which increases inflammation. And these are the ones that we need to reduce. We're getting too much, okay? Omega-3 fats are the ones that reduce inflammation. So these are the ones from the oily fish, the walnuts, the flax seeds, the canola oil, hemp seeds, chia seeds. These are the ones that we need to have more of to reduce inflammation. Diabetes, obesity, arthritis, all these conditions are inflammatory conditions. So if you have any of those clinical conditions, these are the things that we need to have more of in the diet to reduce inflammation. Okay, so this is a summary showing you omega-6, which are the bad fats. You do need certain amount, but we're getting too much in the diet. Omega-3s are the good fats. We're not getting enough in the diet. And you need to have more of the omega-3s to prevent blood clotting, to cause dilatation of blood vessels, and improve your immunity and brain function and all these things. The omega-6, they're doing the opposite of what omega-3 is doing. Nature is amazing because all of this is natural and it's actually balanced in your body. Okay, so if you eat a whole food, plant-based diet, you get all this in the right amounts, and naturally everything would be balanced. But because we're eating a lot of processed foods where the amount of omega-6 is higher, it's actually throwing that balance off. So why is this important as far as your body goes? Well, basically, the health effects of lipid profile. When you get your blood work checked, when you go to the doctor, they check your blood work. You're looking at the cholesterol, the LDL, the HDL, triglyceride. These are fats that are made in the body. If you're overweight, you will make more of the bad fats. If you're eating a lot of carbs in the diet, you'll make more of the triglycerides. If you're intake of saturated fat is so high, then the body makes more cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, LDL. So all these things can be influenced and changed by changing your eating habits. If you start taking care of the quality of fat in your diet, you can make a difference to the blood levels of these bad fats. So when you choose an oil, you know, you go shopping and you're looking at the oils, which oil do I buy? They all have different composition of the saturates, monounsaturates, and polyunsaturates in different amounts. So depending on what your blood work is doing, you need to decide which is the best fat for you to have in your diet and how much you should have. If you're overweight, you need to cut down the quantity and change the quality. Okay, so basic information stays the same, but it's how you choose. So I mentioned trans fats earlier. What are they? Naturally occurring animal fats are trans fats. Okay, so fat of the animal is trans fats. But artificially made trans fats are things like the vegetable oil, the liquid vegetable oil, which has been hydrogenated to make it solid to increase the shelf life. Just like high fructose corn syrup is added to foods to preserve their shelf life, the hydrogenated fats are added to foods to increase the shelf life. Same thing, but this is the part that you need to reduce to take care of your lipid profile. All right, so to cut down fats, basically cut down the portion sizes. If you're having big chunks of meat, cut down and trim away the excess fat. You can cut down fats that way, cook it different ways, don't add extra fats. You can change to lower fat variety of things, changing the quality of, you know, to a lower fat product, changing the milk, for example, or changing the yogurt to a lower fat yogurt to cut down the amount. When you're changing to different quality of fat, look at the label, the ingredients label in particular. If it says partially hydrogenated fats, a lot of these margarines, there's so many out there. Look for the key words. Partially hydrogenated fats are no good. They're trans fats. You need to cut back on them. Okay. So butter is not as bad as people think it is. So the natural it is, the better, and less ingredients, the better the product. You don't need the big list of ingredients in them. Okay, so changing guidelines for fat intake. Basically, the advice is to avoid fatty foods and reduce the total intake and change to healthier fats. It's okay to have nuts. It's okay to have seeds. It's important to have the good quality fat ratio being higher than the bad quality fats. All right, now I'm going to introduce you to fiber. Basically, fiber is important to have more in the diet. We're not eating enough fiber in this day and age, so everybody needs to increase their fiber intake. So what is fiber? Fiber is actually roughage. It's the indigestible portion of food that is important to maintain your bowel health. It maintains your digestive system. Why is fiber important? Because it allows you to fill up. It's low in calories. It adds bulk in your diet. And there are clinical implications of this, especially with heart disease, diabetes, your gut health, to prevent cancer, for weight management. These are important. Fiber is important to have. It's important to have fiber in all these conditions. Okay. Fiber is made up of two main parts, soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. The soluble fiber, it's the part that actually affects the cholesterol level, it affects the blood sugar level, it helps regulate your digestive health. The insoluble fiber prevents things like constipation, it adds bulk to your diet, and it keeps everything flowing. The recommended intake is about 25 to 30 grams a day. The current intake is about 15 grams a day. So everybody needs to increase their fiber intake. Insoluble fiber, like I mentioned, it relieves constipation. It helps with weight management. It adds bulk to the diet. The soluble fiber helps to remove bile. It helps remove the bad cholesterol. And it actually helps in glucose absorption and things like that to regulate your blood levels of glucose. So how do you increase your fiber in the diet? everybody needs to increase it. So include more whole grains. That's the key thing. Start having more whole grain, more whole wheat. Ancient grains are coming back. Things like quinoa, millet, farro, sorghum. These are great grains to have in your diet. These are things that our great-great-great-grandparents used to eat years ago back in the villages, and they never had all these problems that we have now. So going back to the ancient grains is a good thing to increase the fiber. And most of these ancient grains are also higher in protein and omega-3s too. So it's good to have more of those in the diet. So think about your flour, your bread, your rice, and your pasta, and start including more whole grains. When you look at the nutrition label, back to the labeling, and labels are important to read because everybody is buying all this food, right? So look at the label, make sure the fiber is high on the label compared to the product that you're comparing it to. One of these breads is better than the other. This one has 2 grams of fiber, this one has less than 1 gram. Nutrition labeling is confusing because there are claims made on the front of the label saying things are natural. They may use words like no other additives. They may use different words to sell the product, but look at the key things deep within the label, okay? The ingredients list, when you're looking at fiber and how much fiber something contains, the first ingredient should be whole wheat, whole grain, not enriched flour. If it says enriched flour, it means that all the nutrients have been taken out. There's no fiber there, and then some of these other vitamins and minerals were added back in. Historically, is because to prevent deficiencies, but today, I mean, it's taken all the valuable fiber out. Okay, so make sure it doesn't say enriched and it says whole wheat, whole grain. By including fruits, vegetables, legumes, and beans, different colors is the key thing to get all the nutrients. You want nutrient-dense foods. So you want to get all the different colors to get all the phytochemicals, all the things that prevent cancer. Fiber is in all of the foods that are listed here. Legumes, beans, lentils, those are good sources of fiber. Yams, plantains are good sources of fiber, and complex carbohydrates, which is really good. All right, so you can make smoothies, you can make drinks, you can do pretty much anything really, as long as you're having these foods. Benefits of fruits and vegetables. Well, fruits and vegetables, like I mentioned, it has other things in there. All these different colors are actually phytochemicals that are preventing people from getting cancer. So it is important to have the fruits and vegetables. They're colorful and all the benefits of the nutrients are there. So you get fiber, you get natural sugars. It's a good snack to have, low calorie, and you can get fresh or frozen. Both are good, but avoid the canned ones that are in syrup and avoid fruit snacks. There's fruit snacks available for kids and a lot of kids eat them. Those don't have any fiber and there's no fruit in them. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, snack on fruits, nuts, and seeds. That's a good option because that provides with omega-3 fats and fiber. Snack on the whole fruit. You don't have to juice it, but you can also make smoothies with whole fruits, and those are good alternatives. You can add things like chia, hemp seeds to your smoothies to get the benefits of the omega-3 and the fiber as well. So there's many ways of increasing your fiber. Some people ask about supplements. I don't always recommend supplements. I think if you improve your diet, you can pretty much get everything from your diet. You don't need to take extra supplements. But there are supplements out there and they should be used with caution because they are kind of extra concentrated nutrients that are added. So that way you're getting too much. And if you don't drink enough fluids with these supplements or with high fiber foods, then you're more likely to get issues with constipation being worse because fiber is like a sponge. When you put it in water, it gets bigger, it adds bulk. So it's so important to drink enough water when you're having a high fiber diet. And it's also important to make sure you exercise as well to keep that bowel moving. So summary of the benefits of dietary fiber, basically to reduce constipation, help your bowel health, stay healthy, helps with weight loss and maintenance. It helps with blood sugar fluctuation and cholesterol levels. Your blood fats are affected by fiber too. So if you have more fiber in the diet, you'll have less of the bad fats as well. The other thing with fiber, it's a big, important thing to mention right now, is fiber is a very important food for your probiotics. So fiber is prebiotic, okay? So when you have high fiber foods, it's the food that is provided for the valuable bacteria in your gut. And if you don't have enough fiber in the diet, that food is not there for that bacteria. Okay, so if you're trying to prevent yourself from getting cancer and maintaining gut health, you need to have probiotic and prebiotic in your diet. The probiotics are the bacteria that you get from dairy, and you get probiotics thriving in your gut to maintain gut health and the lining and everything so that it's healthy. But you need the fiber, which is the food for the probiotics. Okay, so that's important concept to know, that you need both of those to maintain gut health and prevent a lot of things like cancer. Okay, like I said earlier, it's important to make sure you drink lots of water with high fiber foods, and that's pretty much about fiber. So what is a balanced diet? Back to that question. I think you're getting a picture, right? So when you have your plate, we talked about fruits and vegetables being half of your plate. We talked about grains and having whole grains, and ancient grains are good. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the protein and the dairy just to cover this model. Most of these things are based on your requirements of your height, weight, age, sex, and activity. So your requirements are all going to be different. Not everybody eats the same amount of food. Okay, so protein foods, a lot of people think they need extra protein. You don't need extra protein. You only need what your requirements are. Now, if you're doing extra exercise, working out for a marathon, then it's different. Then you may need extra protein to maintain your muscle, and your intake needs to be higher. But for regular health maintenance, you don't need extra protein. You only need enough to maintain your requirements. By taking an extra protein supplement, you will end up gaining more weight, because most of the excess protein will be stored as fat. So the foods that provide protein are things like the meat, the beans, the lentils, eggs, soy product, nuts and seeds, and some of the grains, things like quinoa, the ancient grains, they also provide protein. Just to touch up on dairy, this is very controversial now too. Before we used to say cut down all dairy to low-fat dairy only, but now that's changing, because we do need a certain amount of fat. Are dairy fats bad? Well, it depends on what's going on with the rest of your blood work. So it's very controversial. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but dairy is an important part of the diet. You can choose whichever dairy you want to have, but make sure you have the one with probiotics. That's important. You can choose full fat or low fat. It doesn't really matter as much now. Factory farm produce versus grass-fed produce and livestock that's another controversial thing, because things that are made in factory farms, where the animals are stored in cages, they're treated with antibiotics, they're treated with steroids, the outcome of whatever product, the meat or the dairy, the milk that comes from those cows, or the eggs that comes from the chickens, is going to be different compared to the grass-fed livestock. Okay, so free-roaming chickens will produce happier eggs. That's the example I always give, but I think there is a difference in the quality of the foods, and there's more choices available when you go shopping, which eggs to buy, which milk to buy. So it's a topical thing right now, but that's a whole subject in itself. Fats and oils I've covered pretty much earlier. That's part of the food group. It's not really on the model, but it is an important part of the USDA pattern. And choosing the healthier fats is all I'm going to say here, because we've already talked about the fats. So shopping on a budget. People always say, oh, it's too expensive to buy healthier foods. Well, that's not true, because most processed foods appears cheaper, but it's less satisfying. And it'll cost you more in terms of your health. So think about that. Some people say it's difficult to find. Not true, because these days you can pretty much buy organic foods everywhere. places like farmers markets, Costco, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, everything is available there. More and more people are buying this, and I think the more people buy it, I think the cheaper the products will get. So we need to buy more of the healthier foods. Some people say it takes a lot of time to prepare, which is not true. In fact, it's the opposite. Few ingredients with a few herbs and spices can make it taste interesting. Simple recipes are always the best. And I think simpler foods are always the best. So when you're shopping, look at the label. With something with a ton of ingredients is not always healthy. It has a lot of additives, a lot of color, a lot of things. It's not good. I know I talked a little fast because I wanted to throw all that information to you, but then now you can throw things back. I don't mind. I just want to say, let the food be your medicine, okay? Instead of taking medicine later down the road. And all I say is skip the diet and just eat healthy. That's all you have to do. All right. Any questions? I will take them. Did everybody go?
I have. I have a question.
Yes.
You say butter is good, so ghee is good too.
Okay. Let me see. Hold on one second.
You can just say.
Okay. Ghee is actually coming back. Okay. So ghee used to be considered really bad in the olden days because we were cutting down saturated fat because of heart condition. Now ghee has, it's the process of making ghee. We're taking out the whey, which is the the separation. You know, when you make ghee, you take off the milk fat. Ghee is not as bad for that reason. Okay, ghee is actually coming back. So the thing with ghee is it's still a saturated fat, but it's not a bad saturated fat. The amount is important, how much you have. If you have too much ghee, then obviously it's bad. And if your blood levels are high, then you do need to watch how much. So it's very individualized how much you have.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
Was I going too fast? I'm sorry. It's a lot of information I wanted to give.
No, I think you did excellent. Thank you so much, Chetna. There was so much good information that we got. The fat and the sugar and the hidden sugar, especially the trans fat. It's kind of, our focus goes back to the labels again, every time when we purchase any food.
Yes.
So thanks for refreshing our memories.
No problem. You can do a whole session on just labels.
Yeah.
There's just so much confusion. People are really confused when they go shopping, like what to buy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's a lot of fake food too, like you said, and it's really eye-opening for a lot of us when we purchase these food. So,
right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
Hi, I have one. You spoke regarding sugar, that sugar is not good, which I mean, like, we all know now that we should be not having sugar, but what kind, if you have to have, like, I know you mentioned jaggery is not good either, or brown sugar. So what do you recommend if somebody has to have? A little bit in tea, maybe.
See, the thing is, when you have it in tea, it's an acquired taste, right? So if you're diabetic, okay, if you were diagnosed with diabetes and you had to stop taking sugar, then you would do it. It's an acquired taste. So I don't think it's necessary to have. You can drink tea without it. If you have to drink it without it, you will, right? But if you really wanted it, then it's your choice, which one you want to add. There's a certain amount you can add. The recommendation is like 6 teaspoons for women and 9, So a little bit is not going to hurt you, but at the same time, look at the overall diet. How much? But adding that extra sugar is unnecessary if you're getting enough from the diet.
And even jaggery is not good anymore?
No, not really. It's never been. It's just, it's always been there. It has a little bit more minerals compared to refined sugar. But at the same time, we still use it in cooking.
Right. Yes.
It's a choice. And how much you add, how often do you have, all these things add up. But the way people are living now with the current lifestyle, everybody's so busy, they don't have time to cook, they don't want to cook, they don't know how to cook, then they'll make all these choices of having processed foods. They're having processed food, which has a lot of sugar already added in there. So they're getting far too much sugar as it is without even trying to make it on their own, you know?
Right. Thank you so much. It was very informative.
Good.
Enjoyed it.
Glad you liked it.
Thank you.
You think Splenda or the Trivia is better? I mean, sometimes for tea or coffee or little sugar, make a little, something else.
Okay. Again, it's that same choice. The Splenda or the all the alternatives, they are 0 calories. They won't add calories to your diet because they're
Right.
artificially made, right?
Yeah.
And all they're doing is satisfying the taste. So your taste buds know that you're having something sweet, okay? But it's not affecting your blood sugars. And
Okay.
it's not affecting your brain receptors, which don't recognize that you've had something sweet. So you're going to still want it more and more.
Okay.
In the long term, you're not going to lose that taste, right?
Yeah.
You're going to want more and more. So you really want to lose that taste for the added sugar. Best thing is to cut back. Once you stop taking sugar, you will lose that taste. You won't want it anymore.
Another thing I will ask, is it better we use butter? Butter than ghee?
Butter is it's just cream and a little bit of salt. Okay. Ghee is like clarified butter. So you boil it and then you remove the milk fats from the top, right?
Right.
And then you've got the you can store ghee for longer time because there's less butter, right?
Right.
The fat contents are the same. They're both same.
Oh, same. Okay.
But they're metabolized a little differently in the body. Okay, so ghee is actually coming back. Before they used to say ghee was bad because it clogged your arteries. That's not really the case. It's metabolized a little differently in your body. So ghee, in fact, is considered better nowadays, but there's still a lot of
Yes.
going on.
Yeah.
It all depends upon how much you intake.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Just take 1 spoon. Ayurveda says just take 1 spoon.
Right.
For your bones, for your skin, for your heart and everything else, just take 1 spoon.
Yes. But don't take the butter and the ghee.
No.
Like
How
she
about
said.
dates?
Dates?
Instead of sugar, if you eat date, natural date,
Yes.
is that sometimes I skip sugar in my tea and I just eat a date and that kind of satisfy my taste buds. But then again, I'm adding carb and sugar. Is that bad? Date?
Right. Dates are very sweet and they have fructose and they have glucose.
Oh, they
Okay,
have
like I
both.
mentioned about the sugar, they're both. But the thing is that both sugars are metabolized differently. Okay. Dates also has a lot of fiber. Right. So by having the date, you're getting fiber, which slows down that sugar from going into your bloodstream very fast.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So compare having a date to having a teaspoon of sugar in your tea. If you put a teaspoon of sugar, that's going to go in your bloodstream very quickly because there's no fiber.
Okay.
Does that make
Okay.
sense? If you're eating the date or the fruit, you got the fiber to slow it down. So it's better in comparison to everything else.
But does it still contribute to your triglyceride? Because you said fructose.
No, that's not, it depends how many you have. If you have a whole bunch
Just
and you're
like 1 or 2.
No, 1 or 2, no, not at all. Because by the time it gets to your liver, it's only a small amount.
Oh, I see.
If your
Okay.
triglyceride is skyrocketing high and you're making smoothies, putting dates in it or something like that, that might have an impact. We have to compare the two. But if you're having 1 or 2, no. And a little bit of everything is good.
Yeah.
I see.
That's what,
Actually, we have diabetes that runs in my family, and I just had my blood test, and everything was good except my A1C was borderline pre-diabetic. So, is fruit that sugar that's in fruit, is that bad for me if I'm pre-diabetic, like just at the borderline?
Okay. One thing is, nothing is good or bad.
Okay.
Okay, other than sugar. Other than sugar. The thing is pre-diabetic, and if you're having fruits give you actually a little bit of everything. You've got, potassium, you've got fiber, you've got carbs, but the amount that you have and how you have it makes a difference.
Like if you have a 8 or 16 ounce of a glass for lunch, a smoothie, which has, of course, fruit, just natural fruit, so it has sugar but carb also.
Yes.
So is that how does, I don't know how many, how does that work for?
Right. So that, depending on how your body is, if you're just having that one smoothie, you haven't had anything throughout the day and your stomach is empty, that sugar is going to go up pretty quickly. If you've eaten something else with protein in it, a little bit of fat in it, and then you have that same smoothie, it's not going to go up as quickly.
Oh, I see.
It slows down the transit in your digestive system. So what you have to do is really look at the whole picture. You can't just define one smoothie by itself. One smoothie can be a killer if it's loaded in a lot of sugar, natural sugar too. If you're diabetic on insulin, you didn't take your insulin, you take the smoothie, that can be.
Of course, yeah. But because my sister, she is diabetic, and I see that she cannot just take all sweet fruits because her insulin. But I'm trying to cut down my sugar, because knowing that at my age, it runs in the family. But it's good that today's lecture was very informative. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thanks for your feedback too. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So much.
Anyone else?
Yeah, the people are not diabetic, but still they are taking Splenda. So they should take Splenda, or they can take little bit sugar in the tea or coffee.
You can take a little bit of sugar if you choose to.
Instead of the Splenda.
So Chetna Ben, what she's asking is which one is better?
You know what? I don't like the idea of people taking artificial sweeteners. I mean, we've used it in the past too. And I have a family history of diabetes. I'm surrounded by a lot of diabetics in my in-laws side too. But at the same time, all these sweeteners in the long term, now we're realizing that they are not having any beneficial effects in your body, because they're not satisfying, for one thing, your blood sugar or your brain receptors. You're not recognizing it. So why take artificial stuff? It's just chemicals, right? The Splenda, I don't think it's a good thing. It's available. If people choose to take it, it's up to them. But at the same time, I wouldn't recommend it.
Maybe it satisfies their taste buds. It's
If you have a little bit of sugar, it's okay, because at least your
Yeah.
brain recognizes you've had it and it's okay. Don't feel guilty.
Oh. So the Splenda is not recognized by the brain, because it has a lot of very, very sweet. Actually, I cannot take Splenda. It's too sweet for me.
It's
Taste buds.
sweeter than sugar. It's 600 times sweeter than sugar.
Yeah, and I cannot take it usually. I'm not, sometimes I've seen by mistake, if somebody gives me Splenda, I cannot drink that tea.
Right, it's
Yeah.
too sweet. And once you get used to having tea or coffee without sugar, if somebody gives it to you with sugar,
Yeah.
you won't like it.
That's true. Just a
You
little bit
have to-
effort to cross the hurdle in the beginning.
Yep. It's a
Okay.
choice. It's a choice. And you make that choice, do it for 30 days, and you're going to be making it happen.
Yeah. I'm going to try.
Husband,
Thank you.
My husband put sugar in his tea since years. So I think even if you add sugar into the tea now, he's not gonna like it anymore.
No,
So
your
it-
taste changes.
yeah. So it's a practice that you can make.
Yes.
Right.
Deleting the sugar out of your package mostly.
Yeah. Think about it like if you were diagnosed with diabetes and you were given insulin, you suddenly have to change your diet and you have to stop
Yeah.
taking.
True.
For
Very
survival.
true.
So you're going to do it. It suddenly becomes important, right? So you make the right choice. To make choices, something has to be important. If it's not important enough, you're not going to choose the right thing.
Yep. Very
Anyone
true.
else?
Don't be in denial. You think like, oh, you know what you're supposed to eat, but choosing the right thing takes effort.
Anyone else?
Wonderful.
We have good questions and it was a good discussion, Chetna. This stuff
Yes.
is always hot in the market. And every time when you feel like you learned something new from your dietitians, you can always practice that or share that knowledge with us. Okay.
No problem. Anytime.
Always available to hear you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. And
Thank
sharing
you.
my information.
Thank you. Chetna.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Namaste.
Thanks
Bye
for that.
Bye-bye.
bye.
Thank you.